Hi, I'm Kavita Gupta
Hi, I'm Vince Molinari, and welcome to the Digital Asset Report Africa.
on CNBC Africa, powered by FinTech TV. Friends, I'm very excited. It's been such a long time since we have talked about blockchain, cryptocurrency, especially with the whole conversation going in the market. But there's a twist to our conversation.
Tell us all about it.
We are talking about the impact of Bitcoin, the impact of the cryptocurrencies, where you cannot really trust where government stands with it, where you can wake up first thing in the morning and realize that the whole currency you really believed and worked for, the whole value has completely disappeared.
Well, what an interesting conversation when we begin to talk about trust, immutability, the independence, and what some of the alternative currencies can mean and their impact.
Absolutely. So our first guest is Alex Gladstein, who is the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Strategy Officer at Human Rights Foundation. And he has become one of the biggest impact figure to support Bitcoin to be used for human rights.
Well, I love when we look at use cases of how we use the most innovative technologies, blockchain, and other components to benefit humanity. Tell us, who else do we have coming on today?
Oh, and the amazing African entrepreneur. So from the home ground, built the company Paxful, Ray Youssef.
What a wonderful story that is.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited, and I'm really looking forward to go deeper with them on this show.
I'm sure everybody's going to love this show.
Our guest today is Alex Gladstein. He is the Chief Strategy Officer at Human Rights Foundation. And today we would be talking to Alex about impact of Bitcoin. Hey Alex, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Where are you joining us today from?
I'm in California.
Alex, I remember when you, and I know your journey started a long time back, but your journey in Bitcoin and crypto, I remember having a very early conversation with you in early 2017, and you were really deeply looking into it and how the global financial systems and Bitcoin specifically can really have a long-term impact, from charity to AIDS to human rights and actually financial sustainability. What really kickstarted that whole, even an interest in it?
Sure. So I started my work in human rights in 2007. And as you note, I had been working for about 10 years in that field before I really started looking deeply at Bitcoin. We started getting approached in around 2013 by activists who wanted to use Bitcoin for different things. We started accepting Bitcoin at the Human Rights Foundation for donations in 2014. But I didn't have that penny drop moment really until early 2017. Of course, the price was beginning to rise. People were starting to talk about it. And I just sort of said, I want to learn more. And that's when we teamed up with some folks to finally bring out some Bitcoin users to the Oslo Freedom Forum. And for the last 5 years, we've been running different programs at Href to connect human rights activists to the Bitcoin community. Because for me, I see it as a tool of empowerment. I see it really doing two things for people around the world right now. Number one is as this sort of sovereign savings technology that anybody can access regardless of what kind of passport or ID they have. It is this permissionless network that can be accessed simply with internet connection, and anyone in the world can get on there and store their time and energy in something that cannot be debased or demonetized by their government. The other really interesting thing that we're looking at is how people are using it as this sort of censorship resistant payment rail. So for example, an activist group taking donations in a place where the government has closed their bank account. Well, they can't stop them from getting Bitcoin donations. So you have this kind of digital gold and digital cash narratives for why activists are using Bitcoin. Number one, to save, but also to move money around without governments controlling them.
So let's take a step back, even your journey before this. You have, coming from MIT, coming from some of the premier colleges, you decided to go deep into the human right advocacy, diplomacy, I would say, by joining Human Rights Foundation, and your incredible work across the world in supporting these dissidents. How financial structuring or aid to them has been a problem which you felt like could be solved by using Bitcoin? Why were these dissidents or these human rights activists in countries were asking for Bitcoin?
Yeah. So again, I've come to my appreciation of Bitcoin by researching and by talking to people around the world. And again, these are people in communities that I've been speaking to for almost 15 years. But I didn't start asking about the money piece until more recently. I knew about their political struggles, and we were helping them with their political struggles. But they don't. Human rights activists don't often talk about the currency piece. For them, it's kind of like, I think it's administrative or logistical, or they don't really apply it centrally to their mission, right? But when you actually ask them, most human rights activists have problems receiving money from abroad. Oftentimes it gets frozen. Oftentimes they live in a country where the actual currency that they earn their wages in depreciates really quickly against goods or commodities or the dollar, real estate, etc. So it sort of disappears quite quickly. And often they have trouble accessing international financial services. So all these like really cool payment apps that we have in the United States or Europe, are not accessible for a lot of the people who live under authoritarian regimes. Basically, they have a lot of financial walls around them. And Bitcoin builds bridges. I mean, from my, where I'm sitting here in California, I can send any amount of Bitcoin, to anyone who has an internet connection, who has a smartphone anywhere in the world in minutes, and no one can stop that. And once you start to grasp that, you realize what a powerful tool this is for people who are in difficult situations.
And is it just Bitcoin or is it any cryptocurrency?
I have a particular focus on Bitcoin because of my background in political science. So the interesting part about Bitcoin is that it has a decentralized mint, meaning the way that the money is introduced into the world is not controlled by any corporation. It's algorithmically run in a way that the users uphold, where there will never be more than 21 million. And we all know exactly how much Bitcoin is going to come into the system today, tomorrow, in 100 years, etc. This idea of predictable issuance is unique to Bitcoin, and it makes it sort of like, very resistant to state capture and attack. So, what I'm looking at is like tools that can be robust enough for people living under dictatorships. And Bitcoin has proven that over the last decade. All these governments have been trying to go after it in different ways and restrict their citizens from using it, and none of it's worked. So it's really repelled a lot of attacks.
But so has other cryptocurrencies, right? They are also minted by a particular consensus algorithm. They also work towards resisting themselves from Sybil attacks. So why particularly Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, I'm not doubt. There's certainly use cases for like stable coins, for example. I was just speaking to someone in Nigeria, and they have like the NGNT, and that can be helpful for folks. But at the end of the day, the NGNT is controlled by Circle. I mean, all of these other cryptocurrency projects are controlled by a small group of people. Even the second most robust and decentralized project, Ethereum, ultimately, we don't know what the monetary policy is going to be in a year or two. No Ethereum engineer can tell you how much ETH is going to be minted in 2022 or 2023 because they don't know. So there's like a small group of people that are going to like do their best and figure it out.
So, Alex, share some stories where you actually saw Bitcoin having a very deep impact on human rights situations.
Sure. Well, I just came out with a piece yesterday called Check Your Financial Privilege in Bitcoin Magazine. And I've been interviewing 3 individuals from Nigeria, Sudan, and Ethiopia. And each of them is a Bitcoin user in a country where their like national fiat currency has failed. So like, I think it's often quite easy for people in the United States or Europe or Japan to like sort of dismiss Bitcoin because their financial system works so well. But, in Nigeria, you have 15% inflation. Ethiopia, you have 20% inflation. Sudan, you have 300% inflation. And in each of these countries, there are very little rule of law, very little property rights, very little free expression. So basically, the government can come and just like take your stuff. And they also impose like arbitrary fees and fines, and there's no open capital markets. You can't just like walk around with dollars and save them. Like in Ethiopia, that's like illegal. You can't have actual US dollars for longer than I think 3 weeks past when you enter the country. So
wow. You have to convert.
Yeah, you have to give it up to the government or else you get arrested. So one of the guy I interviewed, Cal, for my story, his brother was arrested in Ethiopia just for having a $20 bill in his pocket. So, these governments try to have it both ways. Like they try to accumulate dollars themselves, for their own purposes. And then they force the population to use this like very weak, native currency, whether it be the naira or the Sudanese pound or the Ethiopian birr, right? So Bitcoin is giving an escape to these people because number one, again, it allows them to put the time and energy and store the fruits of their labor into something that is not going to just be like going down and to the right. Like I agree with you, Bitcoin is very volatile and it will continue to be extremely volatile for like decades, but it goes up and to the right over time. So their other option is going this way. Bitcoin's going this way. So that's a good way for them to think about saving. But the other piece, as I mentioned, is it allows them to be connected to the world. So Sudan, even though the dictator's gone, Bashir, the people pushed him out, a lot of and the sanctions are kind of over. The corporations are still like worried about doing business with Sudan. So like PayPal and stuff, it's risk management. So people, these companies from America or Europe, they won't go in and service the Sudanese people. So this is where Bitcoin really shines because it allows any Sudanese person with a cell phone, which is now more than 20% of the population, has one and has a smartphone, and you can receive funds from anywhere onto that device. And the folks who I interviewed from Sudan and Ethiopia, these are countries where, again, we only have 25% of the population online. But hey, 10 years ago, it was 5% of the population. So they think by, let's say 2025, 2026, you're going to have more than half the population connected. So this is going to be a huge boon for them, like just this ability to, again, to be their own bank and to not have to use this sort of official exchange rate. Like in Ethiopia, for example, when you take a payment from abroad, the government converts it at like 40 birr to the dollar instead of the real black market value, which is 55. So they just take that seigniorage, essentially, that tax on you. This way you could say, screw that. I'm just going to send whatever this person, like whatever I actually owe them for like the work they did. And if they're worried about the volatility, they just go to Paxful or local Bitcoins literally that same moment that it hits their account, and they sell it for the local currency. So if they don't want the volatility of Bitcoin, as many people don't want, they just use it as a bridge between monies, and they accept the payment, they have control, they sell it, they're good. So I kind of see both use cases around the world. I see people like using it as their primary savings account and believing in it. I see other people just using it to go in and out.
So I think what I'm getting an impression is there is like one global currency, which is like Bitcoin going everywhere, and then every country has their local currency. And instead of having all this process of converting from one currency to another currency, you can use Bitcoin as a bridge when you go international, apart from the saving account, for government perspective to think through, right? Which in some way, unofficially, USD has been serving that purpose, right?
Yes. Yeah. I
And
mean, I would agree with you. The dollar is that bridge currency today, but there are downsides to the dollar. Not only is it not available for everybody, it's highly restricted. And like it gives
and it's
4% of the
controlled by a
population.
country, and so you are keep on fueling one particular country and one particular currency, right?
Right. So like I'm a beneficiary of the dollar system. Like I'm one of the 4% of the world's population who gets to control everybody else. So my currency is dominant. So what ends up happening is other countries, like the central banks of these three countries I just mentioned, Nigeria, Sudan, Ethiopia, they are like forced to buy dollars to get things in the international markets. They have to change their economies to get dollars. And they also save in treasury bills. So you have all these like countries around the world like artificially stockpiling dollars, and that allows America to run up these massive deficits, and we can fund all these wars and social programs and stuff at everybody else's expense. So there's a lot of downsides to the dollar that often aren't talked about, right?
Yeah, so what about, do you recommend these countries to actually have Bitcoin on their balance sheet, on their national government balance sheet?
I mean, I think it's inevitable, and I think that those who move first are going to be very advantaged. I mean, I think that it's going to benefit countries that are more open-minded than the ones that are more draconian. Like the ones that try to like fight Bitcoin are, I think, going to not do so well. The ones that think about it with an open mind, like the Singaporean sovereign wealth fund is already stacking Bitcoin. Like I think they're like an early mover. So it's like, at the end of the day, like I guess I see a very strong possibility that as we moved from the gold standard internationally for balance of payments to the Bretton Woods standard in the 44, and then as we moved from that to to the what we call maybe the treasury bill standard or the dollar standard in 71, that's not going to last forever. And it's so interesting to think that an open neutral money that no government can control could become the next standard for international transaction settlement between nations. It's a captivating idea.
Yeah, but my takeaway is that instead of resisting it, work with it and create regulations and taxation around it for people to choose whether they want it or not, free will and free way of accessing it. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today. Much more on Digital Asset Report when we come back. After talking to someone who has been advocating as more of a policymakers and finding the right entrepreneurs to work with, why don't we actually talk to one who has impressively built one of the leading peer-to-peer exchange across the globe, especially leading the markets in Africa, India, and beyond. The co-founder and CEO of Paxful, Ray Youssef. Hi Ray, welcome to the Digital Asset Report powered by FinTech TV. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, sister. Thank you for asking.
Ray, something which is very, very interesting and for me personally very exciting. You are one of the few, very, very few, unfortunately, African American entrepreneurs in a blockchain crypto space. Yet you built one of the leading peer-to-peer exchange in this community, in this world, completely bootstrapped. Before I go into a lot of questions I have, let me start. How did this journey start for you?
That started from a very hard place. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And as often in life, when things get hard for us, we seek out different ways of doing things. I was a serial entrepreneur, I still am, and I was on my 11th startup. I had 11 failures in a row, and I ended up homeless in New York with my co-founder. And then one day, one of our friends in the Bitcoin world said, "Hey, Ray, do you know that you can make a really good profit selling Bitcoin for gift cards?" At first, I thought it was a scam. It didn't make sense, but I had no choice because I was down on my luck. So I gave it a shot. And it worked very, very well. So well that we said, let's build a platform around this, because how are we going to onboard millions and billions of people into Bitcoin? The best way is with gift cards, because they're available everywhere. They're inroads to a $140 billion retail economy, and people understand them. And it turned out to be the absolute best way to onboard the unbanked and underbanked into Bitcoin all across the world.
And Ray, you went into Africa. And today, Paxful is one of the leading peer-to-peer exchanges out there. Why did you decide to go into emerging markets directly when you realized there's such a huge business to be built in US itself? Did you plan for it or it just happened?
Well, this started from the beginning in that my co-founder and I, and by the way, I met my co-founder at our very first Bitcoin meetup, and I encourage everyone listening to this, go to a Bitcoin meetup, you'll meet some amazing people. So I met him, and the thing we bonded over was not Bitcoin as a technology or Bitcoin as a way to make money, but Bitcoin as an ideal, as a means of exchange to help the little guy, normal people. And because of that, I always wanted to help Africa, India, and the entire what I call the global South, because those are the people that really need help. So from the very beginning, that was our focus. But it was quite the journey because, for example, Africa. I was born in Africa to African parents, so I have a soft spot for Africa. And I truly believe that if we fix Africa, we'll fix the world. So the question is, how do we do that? This was a series of challenges that every entrepreneur has to face. The first thing we had to do is get Bitcoins into Africa, which is difficult because it's very hard to get money out of Africa, right? So first, I talked to Africans everywhere I possibly could, online, and they're amazing people, they're great business people, but I really focus on the Nigerian people because Nigeria is hustle capital of the universe. They have an amazing drive in their DNA to just push things forward. And I would just give people my own Bitcoin. I think I gave away like 1,000 Bitcoin about 6-7 years ago, trying to teach people how to use Paxful. And most didn't get it. Some didn't come back. Most didn't come back. But the ones that got it really pushed it forward with an intensity that's absolutely inspiring. So 6 years ago, I started saying, after like going to Nigeria and meeting all those people I was talking to and seeing the real problems that they have with their money, I knew that Africa was going to lead Bitcoin adoption. And that's what I was saying 6 years ago. Everyone laughed. And now Africa is leading cryptocurrency adoption by almost every measure. It's absolutely a beautiful thing to behold. It's an amazing underdog story. And in fact, if you look at what the young people of Nigeria have done lately, it's absolutely mind-bending. They have created their own alternative financial system with such success that the government had to institute draconian means to stop it, or rather slow it down. And this is just a harbinger of things to come. When the youth of every global South country figure out that they don't have to be a prisoner of financial apartheid anymore, that they can have equal access to money, just like anyone else, then wealth starts being built up. And the beautiful thing about peer-to-peer and systems like Paxful using Bitcoin is that we can actually give anyone, anywhere in the world, access to every single financial network on the planet, whether it's a bank account, an online wallet, gift cards, whatever it might be. The problem is massive. When you look at Africa, there are 2,000 financial networks in Africa, yet only 3% of them talk to each other. Everyone talks about M-Pesa in Kenya, and it's an amazing network, but M-Pesa exists in 7 countries. Yet you can't send money from an M-Pesa account in Kenya to an M-Pesa account in Ghana.
Yes.
Wow. With Paxful, you can.
And you're talking about east to west. You can't even do that between Kenya and Tanzania. It gets converted into 2 different systems.
Absolutely. And that's a huge point, sister. And it's worth us taking some time to explain it to people, because I didn't realize, as an American or anyone in the West, whenever we think about Africa, the media brainwashes us to think only about poverty, disease, and corruption. We don't see all the amazing talent there. We don't understand all the opportunity there. And I have to explain it to people. Consider for a moment, how advanced, how rich would America be if you couldn't send money from New York to New Jersey? And that is the situation in Africa. It's easier to load up a suitcase full of cash and get on a plane to send money to the country next door. It's really a miracle they're not extinct, considering the bonds they have on them. But now all that is just washed away. What we have for us in the first time in human history is the ability to create a truly flowing and free financial market that anyone can access without permission. And that is the most beautiful thing of all.
Ray, you have an amazing initiative, which I have recently become a huge fan of, which is Build with Bitcoin. You're building up schools across Africa, and I think I'm hopefully expanding beyond that. Tell us more about that.
Built with Bitcoin is something that started about 3 years ago. And it all started when I saw this beautiful video about an orphanage in Afghanistan on Instagram. And I contacted the guy about it to make a donation. I asked him if he accepted Bitcoin, and he asked me, what's that? And it all started from there, but it actually began earlier in that, after Hurricane Katrina, I went to New Orleans myself, just looking to help. And by a miracle, I met these 5 Dominican nuns, and we helped rebuild the first school to open up in all of New Orleans, the New Orleans Cathedral Academy. Because of that, the police and fire department could come in because they had a place to put their children. And because of that, then the city could actually grow. And it showed me the power of giving back in the right way. That counts. I'll just put this out there right there. I don't believe in charity. Most of the times, with very little of that money getting to real people. But Built with Bitcoin is our own non-for-profit humanitarian effort. We have a goal to build 100 schools and wells across Africa and the entire global South over the next 5 years. We just completed school number 4 in Nigeria and Kaduna State. And I'm very happy to say it's not just a school. There are also sustainable wells, too, that will ROI in 2 years and provide clean, fresh drinking water for all the people around. About the first 2 wells in Rwanda, in Bugesera district, provide clean, fresh drinking water for 400,000 people. And that is absolutely life-changing. Because when you give people water, you free up so much time. The eldest son of every African family spends 6 hours of his day fetching water. The women spend most of their day fetching water. And that's why they can't go to school. So you have to take care of the water problem first, and then you have the school there, and then you can keep building on top of the school. For me, I could have bought a Lambo, but for me, it's even more fun. It's like Sim City. You can keep building up the school. We just added a clinic to the first school, a computer lab. The children have uniforms, health insurance, and we continually maintain the schools as well. And everything is 100% funded by Bitcoin.
Thank you so much, Ray, for joining us today. And I feel like companies like you, entrepreneurs like you, are coming, who are going through their own stories and picking up the thread of those stories to actually create products so that day 0 they touch people and fill some gaps out there is the right way to do it. Thank you so much, Ray, for joining us today.
And if I have to say, sister, I will put a call out to everyone listening. If you're a product person, product guy, or a product gal, and you love building cool things that will reach people and help people create wealth for the people that need it most, please go to careers.paxful.com/careers. We are always hiring, and the real mission is to build a team that truly cares, that leads with empathy. And that's the difference you'll find at Paxful. So this is me shooting up the flare to everyone listening. If you truly want to change the world, this is how to do it. And we'll be helping the people that need it most. It's good karma. The best.
Go for that. Thank you.
What amazing interviews, Kavita. Tell me your favorite takeaways.
I think with Alex, of course, one of the reason I think is how he talks about activists and journalists, people who keeps our society accountable. The first step which government does is to freeze their bank account. How do you keep them going? How do you keep them supporting them? And I think these cryptocurrencies really help to make our societies accountable and transparent. And Ray's story is just amazing. It gives people like me, people of color, people coming from emerging markets to feel like you can be born anywhere, but you can create a multi-billion-dollar company while creating impact at the grassroots peer-to-peer lending. You have been an expert in this space, like peer-to-peer crypto exchange, I think is the future.
Well, I think as we continue to evolve and we look at how do we engage the global communities, how do we create more of a level playing field that creates the opportunity, access to the opportunities, to the capital, so that people can achieve their dreams and make a difference in the world at the same time.
Absolutely. This is not only the currency of future, but I think that future is already here.
It is here and now.
Yeah. We're very excited to bring this episode to you. For more such stories, please check out Fintech TV. Looking forward to seeing you guys very soon.